They asked us about eating meat. And the group of people who only eat vegetables, the vegans. What does Islam think of vegans? Is it allowed in Islam to have a vegetarian diet and refrain from eating meat? Let's see, dear brothers, meat is a piece of the body of an animal that is cut from the body of an animal. If other products that come from the body of an animal are either birds, mammals, or fish, there are no other types that are permissible in Islam. So, can meat be consumed in Islam? The answer is yes, it can be, but not all meat is permissible in Islam. This means that meat is the body of a dead animal. Since life is sacred, to take a sacred life, you need the permission of the Lord. It means that if you kill an animal in any way other than the way the Lord has permitted you, that meat becomes impure, cursed, of the devil, a work of the devil. So consuming that meat destroys your spiritual life. It turns you into a cursed being of the devil and leads you to fall into sin. Therefore, for meat to be permissible for consumption, the animal must be slaughtered in an Islamic manner. And that is simple, that a Muslim must have sacrificed the animal. The animal should not have died from a prior shock, because they will incapacitate the animal first and then give it a shock to kill it. That is not allowed. Killing it with a prior shock is not permitted. They must have slaughtered the animal with a sharp iron knife across the entire throat, except for the spinal column. Then, the 4 veins that are located in front of the animal's throat will be completely cut, ensuring that not a single vein remains uncut. The animal must be directed with its 4 legs facing Qibla. It is recommended that the animal has been given water, and after cutting the veins they say, "In the name of God." And when the animal is kicking to die, they let all the blood drain out, and then they hang it so that all the blood can leave the animal's body. Then cut the rest of the animal's throat. That's it. The animal will be permissible for consumption. And what kind of animals? Not all animals are permissible to eat. This means that not all types of meat can be consumed. For example, there are meats that are absolutely forbidden. This means that one cannot perform the Islamic sacrifice on an animal that is forbidden. For example, animals such as rabbits are forbidden. Wild boar is forbidden. Pork is forbidden. Dogs, cats. All of these are forbidden to eat. Rats, mice, all of them are forbidden to eat. Only bovines, lambs, cows, camels, which have a special method of sacrifice. Llamas, vicuñas, and alpacas have a special method of sacrifice. Everything I explained was for lambs, cows, and chickens. Hen, turkey, ostrich, goose, duck, quail, pigeon. These are animals ready to eat. Fish have different rules. This means they must have scales. Scales. The fish that have fins and have scales, and that they have died out of water, that they have been caught, and that they die out of water. Fish can be consumed when it has scales. Therefore, other sea animals like octopus, squid, clams, and sea worms are all forbidden. Shark, dolphin, whale, crocodile, lizards. Parrots. Parrots that are not from the sea. Well, those are forbidden to eat. Come on, then you have already learned that there are some animals that are permissible to eat. But, let's see. Is it allowed in Islam to abstain from eating meat? Is it allowed or not? There are many narrations that discourage eating too much meat. That does exist. But at the same time, we have great narrations and many narrations that say that meat is a necessary food for the believer. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, for example, that whoever eats meat, which is the permissible meat from lawful animals, will have the flesh of their body grow, and whoever abstains from eating meat for 40 days will become a person of bad temper and poor manners. You become like a nervous person, and a person who is a malicious thinker, who mistreats others, is a wrongdoer. You become a wrongdoer when you abstain from eating meat for 40 days. So the Messenger of God teaches us, the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, says that if a person does not have money to buy meat and 40 days pass, in those 40 days they could not eat meat. Now, go take a loan to eat meat. Go take a loan, buy halal meat and trust in God, and go eat meat that inshallah God will provide for you. There are other narrations that interestingly mention the virtue of eating meat. The Messenger of God, peace be upon him, and his family enjoyed meat. Abdullah narrates from Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, who states that among all foods, the most virtuous in this material world and the hereafter is meat. Therefore Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, says that it is meat. Have you not heard that God said that on the day of judgment they will indeed be given the delicious and exquisite meat of the birds? And it is interesting when the children of Israel left Egypt, and that God was in charge of providing sustenance, the bread of each day. What did they receive from the heavenly food? They received meat, quail. When they caught those quails that were flying, they were quails that flew very low. So they would grab it and it would turn into roasted quail. Interesting, right? Immediately it would turn back into roasted quail and they would eat it. And it would give honey juice, a type of honey juice. Man was not saved. Or when the companions of Jesus asked for a served table, what did God give them? Meat. Some say fish. Then Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, said that the Messenger of God liked meat and ate meat. Of course, one should not exaggerate in the consumption of meat. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, says, do not make your stomach a grave for animals. May your stomach not become a cemetery for animals. Today turkey, tomorrow lamb, the day after tomorrow chicken. Your stomach becomes a cemetery for animals. Emu Ali Ali Salim says, do not make your stomach a cemetery for animals. Idris ibn Abdullah says that one day he was next to Imam Sadr and they were talking about meat and everything. Imam Sadr alayhi salam gave a recipe for meat consumption. He said, consume meat one day and the next day consume milk. It means that one day you consume meat, protein, and another day you consume lactose milk. The next day, consume something else which is neither milk nor meat. Do you see? So, one day meat, one day milk or yogurt, the other day vegetables, for example, and again after 3 days consume meat, milk, vegetables. Meat, milk, vegetables, like this. Well, then in Islam it is also recommended to consume lamb instead of beef. The Messenger of God, peace be upon him, said, the meat of the cow will cause you illness, but the milk of the cow will provide you with a cure. On the contrary, the meat of the lamb will give you healing, and the milk of the lamb will give you illness. Sa'ad ibn Sa'ad says that Imam Reda, peace be upon him, said, my family does not eat lamb meat. Imam Hussein asked why. They said that they think it will cause him an illness and will lead to sauda, which is a cause of illness, and it will give him headaches, bone pain, all of that. Imam Hussein said He responded to the person, if in the animals it was a more virtuous animal than the lamb, God did not substitute in place of Ishmael, the sacrificed son of Abraham. Abraham took him to sacrifice him. God replaced him with a lamb. This means that the lamb is an animal worthy of being sacrificed. In another narration, Imam Sadr al-Islam recommends eating beef, stew, for certain illnesses. But the stew, well, we have many narrations about eating meat and also about eating other foods. But the main food, Imam Sadr al-Islam says, the main food is based on bread, generally wheat bread. But meat is also important. And the person who does not eat meat will be in a bad mood, a wrongdoer, nervous, and weak. Imam Sadr al-Islam will not narrate the teachings of Imam Ali al-Islam. He says that when a Muslim becomes ill and weak, they should consume milk and meat, because God put a lot of strength in it. For example, here when we get sick, we eat grilled meat. And the truth is, this will cure you quickly. When you have a cold, you feel bad, but halal meat. In another narration, the Maximum of Sa'ad says, consume meat at least once every 3 days, or at a minimum once. In each month it will be 10 times. In each month 10 times the meat, but no more. So, at least once every 3 days eat meat. And do not repeat meat twice in one day. Imam Hassan al-Azari al-Israel says, if you want to receive strength, eat meat. In another narration, it is said that a person who eats meat every day for 40 consecutive days will have a hardened heart. Hardened heart. So you should, yes, consume meat on some days and refrain from consuming meat on other days. This means being vegetarian. The Messenger of God, peace be upon him, says, my brother Jesus, because the prophets referred to each other as brothers. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in a very interesting narration found in the book Bihar al-Amir, volume 14, page 321, narration number 28 says, the Messenger of God, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, one day my brother Jesus was passing through a city. He saw that the people of that city had very pale yellow faces, and their eyes were not well. I don't know. Their eyes were almost violet. And everyone is suffering from an illness. And they came to Jesus complaining about the diseases they are enduring. Jesus answered them, the cure is in your hands. You do not wash the meat well before eating it. And when they kill the animal, they do not wash the meat. And thus, by killing the animal, they will eat the meat. So, you already have that illness for not having washed the meat. Do you see it? In the following narration, which Imam al-Baghra, peace be upon him, says, God does not want them to eat raw meat. Only wild animals like predators typically eat raw meat. You eat meat or dry food under the sun or whatever you have, cooked with fire. This narration is in the book Al-Kafi, volume 6, page 313, narration number 1. In another narration, Hosham ibn Salim recounts that Imam Sadr was asked about eating raw meat. Imam Sadeh, peace be upon him, said, raw meat is the food of wild animals. It means you are not a wild animal, you are not a devourer, so cook the meat. Imam Rada, peace be upon him, said that eating raw meat from any animal is not recommended. There is a dish called sushi, which includes raw salmon and things like that, which I do not like at all, although it is not forbidden. Mind you, it is not forbidden, but it is not recommended. Imam Rada, peace be upon him, says that eating raw meat will cause worms in your stomach. How wise that word is, brother. We are not talking about the last century. We are talking about 14 centuries ago. Better said, 12 centuries when Imam Rida al-Islam was present. Imam Rida al-Islam was for the 8th century after Christ. Imagine, Imam Rida al-Islam says, when you eat raw meat, it will harm you, it will damage your stomach, it will cause worms. Parasites. In your belly, this is in the book, Baha'u'llah, volume 62, narration number. Page 321. So, dear brothers, in another narration it says, do not eat the meat. The messenger of God. The narration we have read. If you eat meat for 40 consecutive days, 40 days, today and tomorrow, every day, or if you eat twice in one day, horrible. In 40 days, your heart will become hardened, meaning that your faith will leave your heart. And it is another narration that we have mentioned. Imam Ali says that you should not turn your stomach into a cemetery for animals. Imam Sadr Ali said that Imam Ali considered the addiction to eating meat to be as bad as the addiction to drinking alcohol. What is an addiction? That a person only likes to eat meat, and it is going to make a person sick. And a person then, if they eat only meat for 40 consecutive days, will have a hardened heart. If they stop eating meat for 40 days, halal of course, that person is going to be in a bad mood, will be a nervous person, and a wrongdoer. Then, the messenger of God says, when a person does not eat meat for 40 days, they will be in a bad mood and become a wrongdoer. Eat meat, as it will strengthen your hearing. In our narration it says, the messenger of God says, eat meat also among your food, because it will help your flesh grow. It grows through the food of meat. Whoever does not eat meat for 40 days will become a wrongdoer and in a bad mood. So it says, in our narration it says to eat meat. Who goes 40 days without eating meat will be considered rude. Who is going to be rude? Let them eat meat. Who eats the fat? And a lot of fat, the fat from meat will make you sick. This means if you are going to overindulge in eating the fat from meat. In another narration, it says that when a person stops eating meat, then they should have the azan called in their ear due to bad manners. If a person does not have money, they should take a loan to be able to buy meat. If after 40 days they still do not have money to buy meat, then they should do it. In Iran, for example, we accumulate money, people pay money, and we go to sacrifice a lamb for those in need, so they can consume the meat. In our narration, it is said that if a person does not eat meat for 40 days, they will lose their sight. This means that their vision will weaken, and their hearing will also weaken. So, make the azan in his ear and help him eat meat. Another narration says that eating meat will increase your intellectual power. Those who stop eating meat lose their intellect. The truth is, I have seen it. Many vegetarians, when you talk to them, you think you are speaking with crazy, stupid people. They are not well. Their minds are not well. I have personally seen it. In another narration, Imam Rida, peace be upon him, is asked by Hussein ibn Khaled, who says, people say that one must eat meat every 3 days, otherwise we will be considered ill-mannered. Imam Rida says that it is a lie. What is true is that one should not abandon meat for 40 days. Doing so will destroy the body. Your body will become deformed. And the fetus and the sperm will also deform for 40 days. How many times should one eat meat? Imam Sadiq, A.E. Sellers, says that at least once a week one should eat meat. But do not get used to having you and your family, your children, always eat meat. No, This habit is not good. They should not have this habit of eating meat all the time. Because the addiction to meat, right? It's like the addiction to drinking alcohol. They are also not going to deprive themselves of eating meat for 40 days, because that will lead them to have bad manners. In another narration that we have mentioned, the Imam said, one day meat, one day milk, and another day something else, meaning vegetables. And in other narrations, it says the same about the bone. Inside the bone, there are certain things that when you break a lamb's bone or a cow's bone, there are things inside. In a narration, the Messenger of God says, let my community eat that inner part of the bone of animals. Here it says, however, the inner part of the bones of animals and birds is not recommended. That if the inside of the bone is like a piece of meat or something, there is something red inside the animal's bone. I don't like it. But it says that they should not eat birds. Well, these are the narrations that we can conclude in this way. One cannot abandon meat, although it is not forbidden. Being vegetarian is not forbidden. It is highly discouraged. The scholars in conclusion say so. Do not eat meat twice in one day. If you eat it at noon, do not eat meat again in the afternoon. On one day, do not eat meat twice. And every 3 days, eat meat once. Don't let more than a week go by without eating meat. If it reaches 40 days, it will harm your body, your brain, and everything else. So meat is a necessary part of a Muslim's food, but it must be permissible. Supermarket meat, even if you wash it, even if you say in the name of God, remains a cursed corpse. And whoever eats it loses their spiritual life, and peace be upon you, and the mercy of God and His blessings.